Thanks, Dan. I'm a carer and a mother of 22-year-old Max. Max has severe intellectual disability and autism. Max has enriched my life and many others in my community in countless ways. So tonight I want to ask this question on behalf of Max. Much of the current media coverage on the NDIS seems to me to have a segregating and paternalistic undertone that both pits the taxpayer against the person with a disability who cannot work and equates worth with employability. My question to the panel is this: are we as a society stuck in ideology that devalues and discriminates against people who may never be able to have the privilege to be employed?
I hear your emotion in that question. I have 3 kids myself, and I hear you. I hear what you're saying. What I've picked up from the previous conversation is really the great intangible value of the NDIS is it represents inclusion. It represents a truly inclusive economy, a truly inclusive society. That is its vision to me. That is the North Star. And we don't have an organization that works like that yet. So where you have people who are meant to be included, who can't even understand it, there's fault in the design. There's fault in the way that it's run. Not any individual's fault, and I'm not being critical. Like I said, a huge effort to build it. And with anything like that, anytime you're doing something for the first time, you're going to make mistakes and you're going to have things that go wrong. When I read back on the Productivity Commission, I'm an economist, I can't help it, read the Productivity Commission reports that talked about the formation of the NDIS. It talked about the NDIS was formulated as an entitlement, and it was purposeful. And the enthusiasm for that entitlement, I think, was universal in the Australian community for the recognition that it is about dignity, and it is about dignity of every single person. So I say that is the vision, and let's just keep building to it.
Rebecca, can I ask about Max and how the NDIS, we heard from Elly before about what it brought to her life. How has it transformed his life?
Well, there's Max. Max self-harmed for a very long time. When we got an NDIS package and he received support that was right for him, it pretty much eliminated his self-harming. It's been completely transforming. And ironically, with the more support he has, the more individual he's become and the more interested in his community he's become. And he gives back to that community, like I said, in countless ways. Enjoy his present-centeredness. I have many people remarking to me who work with him that they've changed their life and taught them a lot. So, yeah, he's a beautiful, joyous person.
Stan, I have to say, you have the joy and the determination of what I see in so many mums of disabled kids. So, but I want to say to you really clearly, Max is worthy. Whether Max works or not, Max is worthy.
You don't need to tell me that.
Yeah.
I know that.
Everyone else needs to hear that. And a word I picked out of what your opening question was he's segregated.
Yep.
And that is something that we all need to be very aware of, because what we forget right now is we have a Disability Royal Commission going on right now, looking at violence, exploitation, abuse against people with disability. And most of those things happen in segregated environments. So how, as a community, can we use things like the NDIS to break down segregation, You know, you read the Productivity Commission report. I read Julia Gillard's speech when she introduced the NDIS into the House of Parliament. And she said that it was a case of moral care. As a society, we were showing moral care, and that the NDIS had found a place in Australia's heart, and we weren't going back. And let me just tell you, I'm not going back. I'm not going back to staking out the special buy section. We're not going back. And I actually really wanted to just focus for 1 second on the fact that when the minister was asked, you know, how do you fix the NDIS? He didn't have all the answers, and that's a good thing because the answers need to come from people with disability. This review needs to be led by people with disability. So thank you for asking that on behalf of Max. Whether you have a job or not does not determine your worth in this community. And I hope the NDIS makes his life more joyful.
People in the wider media that gets that message, because every time I hear the taxpayer and the cost, I just think you are missing a big point here, and you are valuing people's life on how much money they earn, and you're missing out. You're missing out.
Just on that point before we move on, really quickly, Amy, because it is something that is often overlooked. The NDIS is not just a debit column, there is also a benefit column, a plus column. And how much does $1 spent on the NDIS also contribute beyond that?
Well, I mean, there is an answer. There have been studies done. I actually hesitate to give the numbers because how do you compare that with dignity? I mean, to me, it's a non-comparison. There are economic multipliers. There are people who are in NDIS.
But it's certainly in the plus, isn't it? In terms
definitely
of what
in the plus. People who get into NDIS and are then able to enter paid work or expand their paid work, and also their carers, so critical, and broader family. So yes, it's a net benefit. There is no question. A net benefit to other forms of care. Child care has a huge net benefit. Aged care also actually has a net benefit. But the biggest net benefit, I think this is important, is across all cohorts, sectors, actually comes from housing and secure housing. And that is something that I think is often underpinning the stress that is experienced by people who are living with disability and their families, and everybody, and many other people who are in a vulnerable position.
And if you want to know thank you so much for sharing your story with Max. If you want to see the benefit, we saw it on Max's face as well. So thank you again for sharing that story, Rebecca.
Thanks, Dan.